everybody, it's me again, Gravity of Natalie, back here with another video. Okay, so we're gonna just go straight into it. This is a story time, a little touchy, and unfortunately, like, a lot of people go through it. And I feel like I just should come here today and utilize this platform and share my story. The story begins back when I was a junior in college, and I had been dealing with a multitude of things. My parents, were not in the best situation, whether it was financially or within their own relationship. And then my mental state, just like, I was very emotional and vulnerable throughout college, and it affected my grades. But in a nutshell, I want to talk about my experience of being sexually assaulted and then later on being raped. So what ended up happening was, here's the story. He ended up giving me a massage, and everybody know how, like, casual massages, like, you do the massage on top of the clothes, and then it migrated to, oh, well, can you take off your shirt, or like pull your shirt up a little bit so I can like really get into it. So me thinking that like this is innocent, I went for it. So I'm like, okay, let me pull my shirt up to like my shoulders, but I'm still laying on my stomach, so like nothing is exposed. And then after that, it was like, oh, well, like, why don't you just pull your pants down to your ankles and I'll just massage your legs or whatever. So I'm like, okay, like, we've hung out before in like our underwear and stuff like that, but like nothing has ever happened. So I'm like, okay, sure. So then it was like, oh, how about I just unhook your bra or whatever. Okay. Then it was like, I'm just gonna pull your underwear down. Okay, so like, me in that moment, for some reason I felt comfortable enough to be laying flat, and that my body wasn't exposed or anything. Like, at some point I ended up just sitting there like with no clothes on. And next thing you know, it was like he's rubbing my thighs, and then he starts trying to like put his fingers in like my private parts. And for me, it made me feel so uncomfortable that I literally got up. I got my clothes on. Like, I didn't say nothing to him. I got up, I got my clothes on, and he's like, oh, what's the matter? Like, where are you going? I left. And I like blocked him on social media. I deleted his number, and I just moved on with my life. And the next story pretty much was the exact replica of that. So what ended up happening was, it was the same pattern of the massage thing, where working up into getting your clothes off, and next thing you know, at the time, this person was like, well, I know you said you don't want to have sex or whatever, but we can do like foreplay. So I'm like, okay, cool. And what ended up happening was, he was performing, the act on me. And in the midst of that, he ended up pulling his pants down. So he was like in a kneeled down situation. Then he gets up, and somehow was like doing what he was doing, and he pulls his pants down with the other hand and sits up, and like he's completely exposed, and like puts himself inside of me. And like he didn't have a condom on or anything like that. So I really didn't know what to do, and I kind of froze for like a few minutes and was like, is this really happening right now? Like, now at this point in my life, like, I wasn't a virgin. Everybody has this preconceived notion that when a woman is raped, like, her virginity is taken. And I'm like, that's not the case. Like, rape consists of any forced penetration, and that can be for both men and women. Like, any type of penetration that is unwanted is a rape. Whether it's fingers, objects, the male part, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So for me, in that moment, was just like, wow. And with this particular person, I actually shared this story with them, the previous person, about the whole massage. And I felt like, you know, he was like, wow, you know, that guy is really dead wrong for that. Like, why would he do that? But then it's like you replicate the exact situation, but you take it a step further. And for me, I'm one of those types of people where I'm a very strong, like, bold-faced, like, serious person. And there were things that I didn't deal with, and I just tucked down and pretend like they never happened. And eventually, you know, somebody will say something, or you'll be in a situation in like a sexual act with somebody and it'll just bring back all these memories. And it's not that you were sad, it's not that you were mad, anything. And you're just like, really though? Like, you really sat there, listened to my story, and then replicated it, and then took advantage of me. And after that, I did the same exact thing. I kind of froze, like I said. And then shortly afterwards, I got my clothes on and I left. But like, prior to leaving, while he was still on top of me, I was telling him, like, no, like, get off me. Like, get off. Like, I told you I didn't want to do this. And especially, like, with people contracting, you know, gonorrhea, chlamydia, like, trick, all of these different, you know, STIs. Some of them not even being treatable or curable. Like, you don't want anything, no matter whether you could get rid of it or not. And you're just like, really? And it's crazy because, like, us as women, we are looked down upon and we're shunned for when we come out with our situation. Well, why were you there? What were you wearing? Well, what did you say? It's like, it doesn't matter what a woman says. It doesn't matter what she's wearing. It doesn't matter, you know, how she's presenting herself. It doesn't matter if she's already been sexually active. Like, that's not your place. And that's not for you to sit here and just take advantage of somebody. Especially when they have been vulnerable with you and come out to you about other issues that they've endured in their life. And I do recall at one point, like, he would not get off me. And I literally somehow, like, got my leg, like, I put my knee in, like, the middle of his chest and, like, levered him off me. And it was like, I don't know if he was, like, too into it, that he thought that it was, like, a submissive, like, no, get off me. Like, no, homeboy. It was a get up off me. And same exact situation. I pretty much like deleted his number, got up, and blocked him on all social media and moved on with my life. I never told anyone. And it ended up being like later on in life, I ended up seeing a therapist for a completely different reason. And I was talking to my therapist, and he was telling me, like, I don't even know how I got on this topic, but I tell him the story, and he was like, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you were sexually assaulted the first time, and then the second time you were raped. And I literally, like, in the middle of that session, busted into tears because I was like, what? No, I wasn't. Like, we were, doing what we were doing before, and then that happened. So it's like this cycle where it's not that I blame myself or anything, but I never looked at it for what it truly was, which was that he raped me and took advantage of me, of a story that I told him before. And I just want all women and men out there to know that when you feel like you're ready to let people know what happened to you, that is entirely up to you. If it takes you a month, okay, a year, 3 years, 15 years, and you finally feel comfortable enough and your own being and strong enough to talk about your situation, then that's what you do. And if you feel that who you've shared these traumatic experiences with, that they don't support you, then you know what? They don't value you and they don't deserve to be in your life. Okay? And unfortunately, other people, when they hear that somebody was sexually assaulted or raped, don't know how to deal with it. Because for all you know, the same exact thing may have happened to them. And maybe they're not emotionally stable enough to come out to you that, hey, me too. And it's just like a lot of people just don't see the true hurt that it causes. Because when somebody tells you no, you need to like pump the brakes and be like, just cut it off. Don't sit here and continue to take advantage of somebody when they blatantly tell you no. Like, it's unacceptable. And another thing that I wanted to talk about, since I'm just here, was obviously rape is a very serious topic to discuss. The second topic I feel that is like very close to that has to be suicide. And, it's truly unfortunate that the nation we live in, many, many young people are taking their own lives due to various amount of reasons. Whether it's abuse, not being loved, whether it was a rape that they couldn't deal with or heal from. And I will tell you a brief story of how I experienced someone who ended up committing this unfortunate act. And, I was involved with this particular person, and we were talking for a little bit, but eventually I started just noticing certain weird things, and something told me to just dig a little deeper. And unfortunately, I had to breach some privacy. And I'm not really the type of woman to violate anybody's privacy. Like, I'm not going through your phone. I'm not going through your stuff. Like, but literally something in my gut was like, listen, if you don't do this now, walk out the door. And I was just like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is happening? So he had a diary, and he had been writing in it, and I was just like, like, I saw it several times. He told me what it was, and I was just like, I'm not interested in reading that. Like, that's your privacy. So one day he went to work, and I ended up staying over. And like I said, I had that feeling that was just like, read this. Like, you need to know what's in here. So long story short, I ended up reading this diary, and it said like, oh, I moved here, because he was from another state. He was like, oh, I moved here because I wanted to marry this woman. Long story short, this woman ended up being one of his best friends, and he was still like involved with her. And to me, if you're committed to me, I only want your commitment to me. Like, if you with me and your heart somewhere else, then you need to go where your heart is, because it's not fair to me for you to waste my time. So in a nutshell, I read the diary, and then I flipped through a few more pages, and he pretty much talked about how he had been fighting these demons of like wanting to kill himself. And I literally was shook to my core. Like, I didn't know how to react. And unfortunately, I confronted him about the relationship with the girl. And he asked me where I got that information from. And I said, well, I read the diary. And shortly after, you know, he came home from work and was like fired up, super pissed. And like, we got into like this really heated argument, and I was maybe like 5 towns over from where I lived. Like, I literally was going to walk home and didn't care. So he gets in his car and he's following me down the block and was like, oh, I'll bring you home. Nope, you're not bringing me home. I'm like, I've had experience where I've been in the car with people and they're upset, whether it's family members, whether it's boyfriends, whether it's female friends, and they have literally used the car as a means to express how they feel. Like, driving all erratic, my body's just getting tossed all over the place. And for somebody that's been in a really bad car accident by themselves, I can't deal with that. Like, being in a car and you all erratic. So, I didn't get in the car with him. I actually called another one of my friends to come and pick me up from where I was. And he literally was like maybe like 20 feet away and was watching me the whole time. So my friend came to pick me up, and that was the last time I saw him. I was like, you know what? I'm going to ignore his phone calls because he needs to cool off. Like, you are like a cannon right now, and I'm not trying to let you blow up on me. I'm going to give you your space because I feel like that's what you need. And you feel that you're ready to have a conversation where there's no screaming. We could do that. Well, long story short, at least like 4 days went by. And I didn't hear anything from him at all. So I'm like, okay, I guess, he moved on. So pretty much I got a message on Instagram. Like when you send a message but you don't follow the person and you have to like accept the message. It was that type of scenario. So I'm like, who in the heck is this? Like, I model, so I'm thinking like it's some person that like wants to work with me. I open up the thing and it's like, so-and-so has been missing for several days. And we've spoken to his co-workers and stuff like that. And they said that, you and him were involved. And I was like, what you mean he's missing? Like, is this an episode of Law and Order? Like, is this a sick prank on me? Because then Kutcher, bring yourself out, bring the cameras, like, let's do the whole, oh my God, I didn't know reaction. But no, that's not what happened. What ended up happening was that very night that I left probably had to be the smartest decision of my life. So what transpired was later on that night, he got into his car, drove on the highway, and then he crashed his car into a bridge or like the guardrail and attempted to flip the car over into the water. There was like a river underneath. And when that failed, he got out the car and jumped into the water. And this message that I received on Instagram was like, oh, I'm some detective, like, please call me. And at the time, I was with my best friend, and he was like, let's look up this number, like, let's see if this person is legit. Because if so, you, like, really should call them. So I called the number, but prior to calling the number, we looked at the actual, police website, and that was who they were. So called them, and they're like, yeah, he's been missing. The last footage we have of him is him crashing his car and jumping into the river, and we haven't found him. Now, I knew him personally. I knew that he could swim. And I felt like in my heart of hearts that he was very emotionally unstable and jumped into this river and was just like swimming and probably went into the woods or something to just clear his head. And I'm thinking, oh, they're going to find him like in the middle of the woods, like passed out or whatever from exhaustion. But when 1 day went by, 2 days went by, it wasn't until an entire week later that his body was discovered. And his body was discovered by, like, I don't know if they're fishermen or whatever, but yeah. And that, like, really broke me to my core because I was just like, I don't know if I should say thank God that I didn't get in the car with him because he used his car to harm himself, or like what. Like, it's terrible because I lost somebody that I was dating, and at the same time it's like if they have enough wherewithal to want to harm themselves, then there's no reason why they wouldn't do the same to you. And it took me a long time to be able to talk about this and to be able to come out, like my mom was there for me when I literally was going through this. And for a long time, I blamed myself, and I ended up seeking therapy, and I worked through it. And now I actually work in the field of mental health care and dealing with people that have mental disabilities. Like, I work with people that have tried to make attempts of suicide. I've worked with people that have been raped. I have worked with people that have been molested when they were children. I've worked with people that have bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, all of these different, disabilities. And it's truly a learning experience. And I just want everybody to know that if A, you have been sexually assaulted, raped, taken advantage of, or B, you yourself feel like you're stuck in a place and, you feel like life isn't worth living anymore, then you need to find somebody that you trust and let them know. Like, don't let me be alone. And love yourself. But that's all I have to say, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this video.